Well, it is 1:55. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Iowa Ideas, the arts and culture track on Iowa's peculiar attractions. And this is one that I'm really excited about because I am Diana Nolan, the arts and entertainment writer at the Gazette. And I, in my early years, was the travel editor. And just a couple years ago, I did about a year-long series on A Day Away, where I went on day trips to fun places around the state that you can get to, see, and return in a day, or that might take you a day to get there. So I got to poke around all the bridges of Madison County. And I also got to go to Mason City, which is just across I-35 from Clear Lake. And I've also been to the American Gothic House. So, and Trek Fest many times. In fact, yesterday I had on my latest Trek Fest t-shirt. So just to kind of get us in the spirit of it all. So let's go around the room. I have been with the Gazette for 42 years. And at the end of this year, it'll be 47 and a half years as a working journalist. So I always say I've seen just about everything. And let's start with you, Travis. Tell us who you are and who you represent.
Yeah, my name is Travis Riggin. I am the director of Trek Fest, going on, I guess, the fifth year now of doing that for the community of Riverside, Iowa, and also the president of the Riverside Area Community Club.
Excellent. And Carrie?
I'm the administrator of the American Gothic House Center, and I've been here a little over 3 years. And we're situated down here in southeast Iowa and Eldon.
Excellent. And Libby?
Good afternoon. I'm Libby Hahn. I am the tourism director in Clear Lake, Iowa. I have been with the chamber for 15 years, but I am a local gal. Grew up in Clear Lake and came back to my hometown to promote tourism after graduating from Iowa State University.
Excellent. And before we go any further, I would like to give a great big thank you and shout out to the conference presenting sponsor, ITC Midwest. Okay, well, we will launch into our lively discussion that we had this week. And let's see. How does your attraction draw people to your town? Travis, let's start with you.
Well, I think that our attraction is pretty out of this world. If you know the backstory behind Trek Fest, started out in 1985, and it was just kind of an idea for the first couple of years beforehand. And we are the self-proclaimed and now newly recognized future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk. For those of you who do not know, James T. Kirk is the captain of the Star Trek Enterprise ship. And tourist fans from all over the globe will come in and check those attractions out that we have in our town and community there.
Excellent. And I know the backstory because I've reported it many times, and I've talked to William Shatner several times as well. How did Riverside become the future birthplace of Kirk?
Yeah, so there was a book that was out, The Making of Star Trek, and Steve Miller was going through the book, and they're looking for ideas, the city council, on how to bring more tourism and growth into the community. And in that book, Gene Roddenberry was actually asked where Captain Kirk would be born at in the future. And he's like, I picture him born in, somewhere rural like the state of Iowa and in a small town. And so we self-proclaimed that. He presented Steve Miller to the city council. What she was currently on is, this is the idea I have. The other ideas that were out there were not great by any means. It was just kind of like a fall fest or a summer festival. It wasn't anything actually attached to it of like any historical value or anything that would trend in a way that people would enjoy to come out of their shell of their community that they're also in and then come visit ours. But now with opening up Trek Fest, we're bringing in different cultures and different groups and people from different states because they want to come experience this, because this is the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk. And so that passed in I believe it was 84. A group of workers started building the Star Trek, actually the USS Riverside, which is still on display in Riverside. And so it was a welder, a metal artist, a plumber, and an electrician all got together and they built the current ship that still sits in our town. And has maybe even been to a few of these small towns parades as well. So,
And isn't there an effort underway to restore it because it has been sitting outside in the elements for a while?
there is. That effort was drawn towards GoFundMe. I think since we've kind of pulled that out of the GoFundMe, so that way we would have those funds in that account where we're able to do some minor restoration on that. The biggest thing is I mean, the ship was designed as a temporary feature to bring people into our community, and people are still coming daily and to see this attraction, as well as our life-size Delta shield that we have made out of bicycles that was done for Ragbri when it went through our town a few years back. Our parks and everything like that have really jumped into the spirit of it as well, by having Delta shields and Star Trek features in each one of our parks, as well as the birthplace that there's a big monument stone and a statue of Captain Kirk in our town as well. Ships that people might not see as frequently if you come to Trek Fest, though. We have a shuttlecraft that is being currently restored as well. That should be fully interactive, where you can get inside of it and actually like look around and have buttons to press, as well as we have a bird of prey ship, which is the Klingon ship, the bad guy ship. So we have 3 ships, and then we have a few fan ships that actually make their appearance in. A family has converted their vehicle into a ship, and another one converted a smart car into a ship. So it's pretty fun.
Oh, very cool. And Carrie, it seems rather obvious. Oh, can you please unmute yourself? Okay, let's see if I
Okay,
can.
I'm okay.
Oh,
It'll add up. We have quite a few customers in the background, so I apologize, but I hope I tried to mute myself so you don't hear all that. I don't know if you guys could hear it, but we're quite busy today.
oh, well, that's a good thing.
It is, but I don't want it to be distracting here. So,
Oh, well, I've been coughing because I just ate lunch, so it fits right in.
okay.
So, Carrie, what attractions bring people to Eldon?
Well, the American Gothic House, that it's kind of a standalone attraction, so to speak. It is known worldwide, and people come here specifically just to see the house. And so the center that I'm sitting in right now, the center was built to enhance that visitor experience instead of just, okay, I saw the house, I'm leaving. We go a little bit more in depth. And so we have an audience anywhere from art lovers to history lovers to architecture people, engineers, and then families. We're starting to get more and more families since we have added some children's exhibits. We get a lot of people by accident, quite frankly, also. They see our sign on the highway and they trek in 6 miles to come find us. So with that being said, that's what we have here on our site. But we have, oh my goodness, we have like 6 historical sites in Eldon alone. In Eldon, we only have 783 people. It's a really small town, and we have like 6 National Register historic sites here in town. So I think that alone helps bring people here.
Yeah, definitely. And makes it a very worthwhile jaunt for the day. It's not just spend an hour, take some photos. You also have a beautiful, it's like a pollinator garden outside the visitor center.
We do. The one thing is, here at the center, we are, how we're owned is a little complicated, but we don't own the house. So we'll say that from the beginning. We don't own the house. The State Historical Society does. Here at the center, we are owned by the city of Eldon, but we are managed by Wapello County, specifically the Conservation Department. And because we are with the Conservation Department, we do have native prairie gardens out front that are regularly maintained. And out back, we also have a restored prairie. And there's also now it's 18-hole disc golf course, but kind of goes alongside that prairie garden that's out back as well.
Good sized parking lot, as I recall.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second.
Oh, you have a pretty good sized parking lot, as I recall.
I do. We do. There's plenty of room for buses, motorhomes, car clubs. We've had many car clubs, motorcycle clubs, semis have pulled in. So yeah, we do have quite a nice size parking lot. I'm very thankful for that.
And I'm recalling, but it's been a few years since I was there. I'm recalling a picnic table, maybe under a great big tree.
We do have a picnic table to the north, towards the house, and there are a couple trees around there. We have another picnic table that was added, I think it was last summer, that is to the south, that is under a grove of trees also. It had a special connection with the city worker that takes care of our lawn, and I believe it was his uncle made it. It is made out of concrete, but it looks like wood, but it's made out of concrete. It's incredibly heavy. How this happened, I don't know, but there were some people that were not behaving themselves and they threw it over the side of the bank, and our worker found out that it was there, and lo and behold, don't know how he hauled that baby out of the river, but he hauled it out, cleaned it all up, restored what he needed to restore, and made underneath those trees a nice little rock garden. And it's all enclosed with the table and the benches with it. It's very lovely.
Oh, very good. And for Libby, it also seems obvious that Clear Lake is the attraction, but there's more to Clear Lake than meets the eye.
Yes, there is. So of course, our 3,600-acre lake is our number one attraction. It's kind of rare in Iowa to have a large lake. So we always say if we didn't have a lake at the end of Main Street, we would be a totally different community. But in addition to the lake and all the activities that allows, we are also home to the Surf Ballroom and Museum, which is recently been added to the national. It's a national landmark. So we're number 27 in the state of Iowa. So very proud about that. It's also a national rock and roll Hall of Fame landmark, as known as the day the music died. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper played their final concert right here in Clear Lake at the Surf. And then perished in a crash site north of town, just about 5 miles, when their plane came down in winter after the winter dance party. So we always say the Surf is where music lives. We really do dedicate a lot of time and efforts into live music throughout town at the Surf. Music lessons. Our community is very musically inclined, and there's always some kind of live music to enjoy all throughout the year.
And now you were saying you've also built a new facility that includes rooms where music lessons can take place.
Yeah, so currently there is the Surf Music Enrichment Center that is a office nearby the Surf Ballroom, and we were lucky to get a Destination Iowa grant that has allowed us to build this new building and really dream big. So this building is currently under construction. We just posting some updates on that on our Facebook page and Instagram. But this building is going to open in June of 2025. It's a 2-story building. It is actually modeled after the original Surf Ballroom, which was originally on the waters of Clear Lake and burned down. Then was built across the street, was rebuilt, and that's the current Surf that is known as the day the music died. So going back to big bands all the way to today, we host lots of different music, but this new Music Enrichment Center will also host artists in these rooms. We have great facilities for them to be able to come, and when they get off their bus, when they're not being used by artists, they're going to be used by students learning piano, violin, voice lessons, everything under the sun. And then for the visitors, we have, when you come in, there's going to be an immersive experience similar to the Van Gogh experience, if you're familiar with that. So it's going to just range all the genres of music, people that have been inspired by rock and roll legends that played their last concert here. And then a great facility upstairs that'll be an event facility that you can rent and host meetings and any kind of party over with a balcony that overlooks the lake. So we're very excited to have this facility in Clear Lake. We've been really watching the progress and it just looks stunning. They've got the exterior almost finished and it is very Art Deco type of architecture. So we're really excited about it.
Excellent. And don't you have a child who's excited to be taking music lessons in that building?
I do. My daughter, Jordan, is in piano lessons at the current Music Enrichment Center. And I said, well, just wait. When they get the new facility, you'll be able to go there for lessons. And what's really cool right now is the piano students, especially at the holiday season, they get to do a concert on the stage at the Surf. And so I know for me growing up here, being on stage at the Surf is very cool, a rite of passage. But when you get artists coming in that are playing on that historic stage, it really hits their heart and it's so meaningful to them to be on that stage. So it's really amazing that our kids can find that love of music and also have that experience.
Oh, that's nice. And Travis, so Trek Fest is not just a one-hit wonder for Riverside. You have other things, other attractions to bring people into your community besides the end of June.
Yeah, so we have a history center in town as well. We've had several large donations come into that, being Star Trek stuff as well as local historical stuff. Whether it be, the first house kitchen that was there, the railroad tracks that came through our town. And then we have, like I said, large scale memorabilia that's came into our community that somebody donated from Minneapolis and I believe Indiana, and each one had over, I believe it was like 4,000 or 5,000 items. So it's constantly being circulated throughout the museum there. And that museum, I believe it's open every day of the week, but Sunday, in the hours there, you just need to check before you go. But I know that they do a really good job of getting that open with just volunteer help. And it's right next to the ship there. And yeah, the museum is kind of something that a lot of people should go check out just because the shock and awe factor of how far that people actually come to travel to come see our town of 1,200 people in Riverside, Iowa. We have people from all over the world that this is on their bucket list. It's almost like a pilgrimage if you're a Star Trek fan, that it's like on the bucket list of things to do. There's Vulcan, Canada, and then there's, Bloomington, Indiana for Kate Mulgrew. That's where her character was born at. And then us, but really it's Vulcan and Riverside for Trek Fest is the two key pilgrimages that they have there. And I wouldn't have liked to have it any other way, to be honest with you. Growing up around this the whole time, I was like, this is kind of crazy and wild to see this, Why couldn't we be just like a normal summer fest? And then when growing up and thinking about how many people actually do come into our community based on this, what it was at the time, small idea, but it was thinking big that changed the game. And then looking at a world map like Trek Fest alone, we had 26 different states in representation and 2 different countries that came to our festival to make up probably about 2,500 people that come and see it annually. And the museum, I think that they probably see about 6,000 to 7,000 people come throughout the year into the museum there to market. And then if I was a betting person, I would say there's about 10,000 people that come in that when the museum's not open, and they just have to see the local sites or peer through the windows and see the museum that way. But yeah, the museum does a great job of circulating historical facts of Star Trek and also the community of Riverside, the local scouting troops, whether it be Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, as well as any other clubs or hobbyist organizations that would like to put stuff on display. But yeah, they do a great job.
And you have a big gift shop because that's where I found my t-shirt. And
Yeah.
I know my brother has several t-shirts. And you also bring in the stars of the various Star Trek iterations. I know I've interviewed Nichelle Nichols in years past, and I'm pretty sure I've talked to George Takei. I'd have to look back in our archives to make sure. I know I've seen Chekhov and Sulu even at a book signing in Cedar Rapids years ago. But of course, we've had Klingons there. And then this year, our hometown girl, we had Terry Farrell, who was Dax.
Yes.
And so she was great fun to talk to. I finally got to talk to her. I've been wanting to for years. So
And
whenever they hold their talks during Trek Fest, you cram more people into the fire station community room than is probably allowed. But it's
Yes.
wall to wall people.
Yeah, so this year was a little bit challenging. I would say that it would have been when I was so my mom ran Trek Fest for, I would say several years, but when it was probably one of her last years of running Trek Fest, they brought in Nichelle Nichols, Walter Koenig, and George Takei. And with Terry Farrell at Trek Fest this past year, it was probably the biggest year since then that we've actually had. So in our Q&A session, we had, I would say it was probably close to 300 people. And I think that the space only allows for 166. So we definitely broke fire code within the fire station. So if anybody's on here with that, I think it's kind of a forgiveness thing. We should probably just ask for forgiveness if we get our hands slapped on that. But um, I we have to shift gears a little bit as our event has been growing over these past few years. We kind of went through a plateau or even a dip after COVID, and then gaining back that speed and getting in not only the Star Trek celebrities, but good local music as well and local talent that people know from around the area that want to come see those people play. Um, it puts on a really good event for us. And so it allows the people that aren't Trekkies to still have a thing to come in and do in our community. So we kind of target two different audiences for the same event. Um, but building that brand to get people down into the park to listen to the music if the Trek side isn't their thing, or if the Trek side is completely their avenue. It's like we have events that go on all throughout the weekend that they can entertain themselves with different Trek activities or highlights that feature those activities. The one thing that I would love to see in the future for our area is a campground. I think a campground would be huge down in that park area to offer a more entry level experience, but also a more relationship building experience that people that come yearly, they could go camp there and they could see the same people that they see every single year. With our event, we don't really rebrand the date. It's just the last full weekend in June. And so each year people just know and have that on their radar. Um, and it's incredible to see the people that just come to small town Riverside for a future idea that none of us will be around for, to celebrate that. But it's going in the right direction. And it just blows my mind to see where people will come from each year to visit our event.
Yep, there are diehard Trek fans out there. And also when it's not just that weekend, you do have a racetrack in Riverside. Don't you, where you do the
Um,
demolition derbies?
so
Or
so I mean that's a great thing to probably like segue into. But so actually it was something that we had to do away with, the demo derby.
okay.
Um, it was something for us that we found to not be financially stable because we were using it as a fundraiser, but over the course of 3 years, it wasn't actually producing either A, the attendance of the people that need to watch it for us to make any money, or B, we didn't get enough cars and the event went so short and we still had the payouts for the demo derby. So unless things change, I don't foresee us doing that in the future again. So it's kind of one of those things that we had to shift and figure out different activities that we could do to still bring in that volume. So we partnered up with like the Kelowna Brewery to make a signature beer each year for us during Trek Fest. So this year was a Trilsner Pilsner, and it had like Jadzia's spots on her face, on the can. So that was super cool. And we've done that for the last 3 years now. And that's definitely helps. We sell roughly, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about 500 cans of beer of the same exact style, the only beer that we sell more of during the course of the weekend is Busch Light, which is kind of probably an obvious thing in Iowa, but um, it's really incredible to see different things that we've been putting on. We also have a scale model show that's been picking up quite a bit of steam and has people from, all over the area, whether it be Minneapolis, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and I believe Missouri this past year that have been a part of that. And they bring in these scale models, they can be anywhere from, about 6 inches in size to even, a couple like shoe boxes in size, so like 24 inches. So, but yeah, the demo derby, I mean, as long as we've done Trek Fest, I believe that there's also always been a mud run or demo derby. So to shift gears and navigate through that, like, well, what do we do at that time? Was a difficult conversation to have, but also it was taking more, it was a sinking ship to say the least. It just wasn't financially stable for us to keep doing it, as well as I know that everybody probably struggles finding volunteers for their organizations. And for us, we would have to find 12 volunteers at least to run the demo derby. So for us to kind of focus just on the celebrity side of it and the stage side of it, we're able to kind of reduce the amount of volunteers that is spread out and put them all in one central area. Um, but also, like you said, with the fire station, we've had to pivot there. Our plan is to do it out on the stage during the mid-afternoon. So that way there's plenty of space. The beer tent will be close by. We keep people in the park rather than them leave the park. And then once they have left the park, there's really no incentive to get them back down there to spend more money in the kind of like town square area or even the park area with the food trucks, beer tent, the merchandise, as well as being a part of the events that go on throughout the evening. So
Excellent. It sounds like a good evolutionary kind of festival. You know, I think we all need to change and evolve with the times, and it sounds like you guys are doing that. And Carrie, I know that Eldon does indeed have a big racetrack because I've driven by it.
Yeah, we do. The Wapello County Fairgrounds are here in Eldon, and they are a big thing on weekends. Now, just like everyone else, they are struggling to find people to make sure that they happen every weekend. So they're not every weekend like they used to be. But yes, it's still a big deal here in Eldon.
Okie doke. And do you have a summer festival? I was kind of going back through our archives, and it looks like there was, and maybe it still is, a festival with a parade and sort of built around the American Gothic theme.
Yes, we do. And so it's usually the second full weekend in June. And it does vary depending on a few other factors, but it's at the beginning of June, and we do call it Gothic Days. And it is a celebration of having the house in the town and the history and the notoriety that Grant Wood has brought to the town because he used this house in his painting. And they have the big thing I think has really been happening is the night rides that they've been having with the side-by-sides and four-wheelers. They kick it off with that. There's usually a car race. There's a parade on first thing Saturday morning, but actually I shouldn't say first thing because my 5K is before the parade. So I have about 7 a.m. Well, I'm here about 6 a.m., but about 7 a.m. people start rolling in, and the whistle blows at 8 a.m. and we're done in time for the parade, and the parade will start at 10. And then there's been there's been car shows, other memorial rides. There are activities for kids down at the KD Center. They usually have a street dance on Friday night with some big popular area band. The street dance, Chami's, has food that you can go purchase. We have food trucks. Another big thing is the mud volleyball. They get teams and they love their mud volleyball here in town. There's just jam-packed with activities beginning somewhere between Thursday night and ending about Sunday afternoon.
And I'm remembering a really cool railroad museum that is kind of along the riverside.
There is. And in fact, it shares the parking lot with Chami's that I mentioned earlier, which is the bar and grill. The Eldon Depot Museum is down by the river. They've got like a car that's outside, and they've got kids stuff. They've got two sections where they have the museum, but then they have another one where they have I assume you call them micro trains that go through. And so, yeah, we do have that here in Eldon as well.
So Libby, tell us a little bit about what there is to do at the lake, because it's not just a summer thing, I hear.
Yeah, well, I was worried you're going to ask me about racetracks, and I know nothing about those. We do have one in our county, but not here in Clear Lake. But we do have a lot of sailboat races. We have a lot of regattas on the lake, snowmobile races in the winter. We just wrapped in August, we hosted the Inland Lakes Yachting Association's championship, which had people from many states come and sail. So that was wonderful. We had a few, I think, 4 different classes of sailboats. But on the water, we have, we were talking yesterday about how lucky we are with our topography. And this year we saw some rains and flooding throughout our state. And Clear Lake was very fortunate. We are like an inverted saucer. So if you think of a cup and saucer, flip it over. That is our elevation. We're the highest point in the county, Cerro Gordo County, and our elevation is actually the same as the tallest building in our neighboring Mason City. That's just about 7 miles away. So we hosted a lot of people that hadn't either been to Clear Lake before, their plans were dashed in other areas. So we had a really hot summer, lots going on in addition to the boating, swimming. We have fishing tournaments all the time. We just had our fall walleye tournament on Sunday, and our harvest festival just wrapped as well. And we were talking about 5Ks with Carrie. We have a unique 5K that we just did on Saturday. It's the Champagne 5K. And that is what we do to kick off Harvest Festival, which is a wine and beer sampling and a huge farmers market downtown. But we had over 200 people sign up for our Champagne 5K. I think this is year 7. And so they wear costumes. We have awesome people that are so creative doing like a box of wine or bunch of grapes, lots of fun stuff. And then they run out and run back. And at the turnaround, they actually get a glass of champagne to make their way back. And then at the end, they get a mini split of champagne. So it's a fun way to kick off the day, get your steps in before you're going to go downtown and spend the rest of the day sampling and eating and all the fall goodies.
I would be all in for that. I thought, if you just dangle a bottle of champagne in front of me, like at the end of a fishing pole, like they used to do with like greyhound racing, I would follow that all along the trail.
Yeah, and we have, I would say about a third actually run it. The other 2/3 bring a stroller, bring their dog, and it's just a nice, leisurely walk, nothing serious. We don't time it or anything, so.
Excellent. Well,
I'm going to add, if I can, add back to my 5K. So my 5K isn't as exciting as that. We do kick ours off with an art contest. So I do have an art contest that's that we help sponsor. So does the Toma Arts Council, and we do have from all over. So we can have art entries that you don't have to live in Eldon. You don't have to be a school kid in Wapello County. We get even from Missouri. We get entries from Missouri. We've had entries from Minnesota, from Wisconsin, for our annual art contest, and there are cash prizes for that. And what happens is you can start dropping off your art pieces, your original art pieces, no photos, original art pieces, and all they have to do is feature the window of some sort. They have to have the window, and start dropping those off at the end of April, and then we cut that off right before Memorial Day. And then I have a panel of 3 judges that comes in, and they judge for first and second place, and then the first for the age categories. And then what I do during that Gothic Days that we mentioned is that the center's open, the pieces are on display, and you vote for best in show from first and second place. So for the top 12 places, so to speak, because there are 6 categories. What you're talking about, Libby, we have that too. And except they call it a fun run, and they have it in August. It's usually the week before our Porch Fest, which is music on the porch, which is celebrated the last weekend of August each year, and has now become an international thing. But our fun run, what they do, and it's sponsored by GATE, which is Gothic Area Tourism at Eldon, and I am on that board. And what they do is they have different, not champagne, they have other drinks as you go down we have a path, and we go, and then they end up, and there's a street dance and other fun things as well with that. So they definitely always have that's a big incentive to participate in that for people, because it is a ton of fun. They dress up, they have teams, and they see, I hate to say it, how they win, but it's kind of like golf. Let's just put it that way. It's kind of like golf by the time you get through it. So that actually is a huge event that we have. It starts on our grounds, even though we are not directly involved, but it starts at the Gothic House. That's where and I'm telling you, they don't do any running either. Just let you know. But it starts at the Gothic House and then ends up downtown.
Excellent. Do you find that at other times visitors might bring a sketchbook or even set up an easel outside the Gothic House to do a little plein air kind of work?
Actually, that just happened just like 10 days ago, maybe, where a lady was sitting out there and she was doing her own sketch, and she had asked permission. That's how I knew she was coming. Had asked permission and said that she wanted to do that. What I get most often, however, is not sketching, but I get people that want the picture. And so we do with a fee, with our admission fee, which it's $5, ages 13 through 59. And if you're 60 and over, it's only $4. But with that fee, you can borrow our costumes, take them outside, and have your picture taken. And if you don't have anybody with you that can do that, we have selfie stands also. But more often than not, I get artists that come here and they want the picture. And so I remember it was my son's birthday, and we weren't fully open yet because of COVID, and we weren't renting our costumes at that time. Well, she actually made her own costume in the parking lot, made her own costume, and came and then asked me if I would take pictures for her. I was out there for 45 minutes with her taking pictures, and they were a newlywed couple, but she was an artist and she wanted the picture because she was going to blow it up and she was going to mount it above the fireplace in her studio. And so we were there 45 minutes, and finally I said, ma'am, this has been great and we've had a ton of fun, but it is my son's birthday and he would like dinner tonight. And I said, I really need to go. And I still was there another 10 minutes with them because they're searching for the picture. And they look, and then I do have a picture of the American Gothic painting that's out on we have 4 interpretive panels. So they'll take the picture and they'll look at it, and then they'll go look at the interpretive panel. Oh, well, it's just off just a little bit, and keep going to get the picture.
Wow. Now, do you still offer pitchforks too that people can take out to hold?
The pitchforks come with the admission and the renting of the costumes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I know the costumes are a huge part of Trek Fest because I've seen them there. I've seen Klingons. I've seen people do really amazing kinds of makeup and costuming. And then, of course, you have the contest on the stage at the park every year. And I remember this year there was a little girl, maybe about 8 years old or so, who entered, and her name was Jadzia. And I thought, well, her parents are diehard Trekkies, and that child's going to have to say, pronounce, and spell her name for the rest of her life. Whoops. Oh, you're muted. Darn. Can you unmute yourself?
Perfect. I made the mistake of muting myself. My fault there. So, but yeah, so I know the family that you're talking about. I actually believe that they're from Cedar Rapids, and they've been coming down the last 3 years since finding out about the festival. And thankfully for social media and the low entry of marketing, that it allows us to kind of really nitpick and target who we're actually like sorting to find to come to our festival. They're actually a family that has a 1500 Dodge Ram white truck that has pinstripes down the side of it, like the Enterprise, that has 2 PVC nacelles that they put on the side of the truck during the parade, and they haul them down there and the kids go on the float. So yeah, the costume contest is something, if you haven't seen it, I don't think that you would believe it to really understand what these people, the extent that they go and do for their costumes. We had another gentleman that was Data all day long and even put the makeup on. So he was like pale as a ghost and wore it all throughout the day in the beating sun. So people will go to the extreme. We've seen people that come in and other things other than Star Trek related stuff. We had a our Optimus Prime one year come in, as well as a Batman and Robin come in. So there's lots of fun things that people do for the costume contest, but you nailed every single big category that typically is a pinpoint there for us. So yeah.
And I've seen dogs in costume too.
Yeah, so we actually, I might be biased, but I think we have one of the best pet shows for our event as well for being what it is. We have people that enter their pets from whether it be a local pet that might be a miniature horse or a cow or a pet chicken or cat, or we have some people that travel with their dogs and they dress them up and they have Star Trek names that are very specific, and they put their pets in uniform as well as themselves, and they go on stage. So yeah, I would say that we definitely should look into getting a bingo card for all the things that you possibly could see, and use those as an activity for our event. I think that there's a lot of neat things that happen within the festival, but I mean, there's so many things that also happen outside of the festival as well. So
Well, and I'm someone who one of my favorite kitty cats out of all of the kitties I've owned over the years was Tribble. He was my
yeah,
sweet little Tribble. When the girls brought him home from piano lessons because the next door neighbor needed to find a home for him, there's this little light gray fur ball. And I said, "Oh, he looks like a Tribble." And that name stuck. So you mentioned something that is a natural segue into how do you market your events? They seem like a natural, but there's always budgets. I mean, marketing isn't free. How do you do that? And how has that changed maybe with the rise of social media?
are
Libby,
you
how do
asking
you
me,
let,
Diane?
yeah, you can start.
Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of what I went to school for. I have a degree in marketing, so understanding how to work social media to the best of my advantages there. Um, Not taking anything away from the paper. I know that we get a lot of great exposure in there, but we've put equally as much stuff on social media budget wise as we have paper and radio, and we don't do really anything television wise, but between radio and print, I think that it's pretty much like 50-50 split now with social media. The only platform that we're really using to target those markets is on Facebook. You're able to break down your target markets and your demographics, whether your income level, what you're trying to target, and who you're trying to bring into your community. You're able to do it based on like um, race and gender and age and hobbies and activities. So we have different things going on when we target just the Star Trek fans, but then we also do ones that's just music specific to who we're actually bringing in. So for me, I think that growing a smaller event, especially in a town less than 5,000 people, I would say that you would strongly be in a great position to use that to your advantage of social media to gain that exposure, because I think for like I want to say it was $400. I think that we had over 50,000 clicks through our page over the course of 6 months.
Oh,
So
excellent.
which was
Very-
which was nice. And
Yeah.
segue that I forgot to mention. So Tom Walsh used to work for the Cedar Rapids Gazette,
Mhm.
uh, and he wrote the original story on the front page of Riverside passing the motion to become the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk. So I thought that was a cool segment that I wrote down that I thought I should bring up during this time as well.
Oh,
So
that's very cool. And I also got to go down to Iowa City and report when the movie that mentioned Riverside was premiering. And that was a really cool event. And I've talked to Shatner several times. He's always a wonderful interview. And the man has more energy in his little finger than most people have in their entire body. So
yeah, and
whatever
for us
his,
too, the he's came to town, but he came on his dime to do a reality show with our community.
yeah, and
And
that when he kind of punked you a little bit, and that created some waves and a little bit of ill will, as I recall.
I think that the ill will, it was people kind of being more so nitpicky and petty. But when you think about it, Shatner, for his appearance fee to come into a community or a festival, let's say it's a Comic-Con, I mean, he has a minimum signing guarantee of roughly $50,000 that he wants to make. We could never afford William Shatner to come to his future birthplace. Shatner came into our town for 3 weeks to punk us, but each night they would do reveals of what they recorded, and it would bring people into our local establishments, whether it be, it used to be called Delgado's, but that closed, but it was Murphy's, and that one is no longer with us. But um, each night that restaurant would be packed just for the opportunity to bump shoulders with William Shatner, whether you were a Star Trek fan or not. I know that some of the locals were upset about it afterwards. He did donate $100,000 of his own money to Riverside to go towards a rec center slash like city center there. So I always like to say when people bring that up about like the negative emotion that's towards it is, grow up. If you look at the financials of how much that would have cost for the exposure for 3 weeks to have the newspaper, TV stations reporting on this, I mean, we'd be in the several hundreds of thousands of dollars of what kind of marketing that just did for our community. Um, as well as the fact is Shatner paid us to come into our town rather than us paying him to come visit.
Oh, that's awesome. Libby, how do you market Clear Lake? Do you focus on the lake? Do you focus on surf ballroom? Do you split it down the middle? How do you do that?
Well, we have lots of different things and lots of different buckets of people that we want to market to. And like Travis said, social media does make it really easy to really fine tune that marketing. But yeah, most of our stuff is a leisure traveler. We work a lot with travel writers throughout the Midwest that we want to connect with their audience that they've grown, and having like a really authentic story, inviting them to Clear Lake to experience it themselves. And then they can go back and share their experience through photos and through their writing. That's really been great for us. We've made a lot of great friendships doing that too. Diana, I know you're going to be retired soon. So if you're ever feeling like picking up your laptop again and come to Clear Lake, and we've used travel writer stories on our blog as well, if a writer doesn't have their own network. So that's one thing that I've really enjoyed doing, is telling our story through somebody else's eyes.
Excellent. Well, and I'm so sorry after we were talking that when I came up to do a travel feature on Mason City, I'm real sorry I didn't turn left and go on down to Clear Lake. I think back in the 80s, I did an overnight stay in a giant cabin with a church group there on the lake, but it's kind of a foggy memory because it was so long ago. And I had a really great friend living in Mason City. And of course, my whole point of going there was Music Man Square, since our local theater troupe was doing a Music Man concert with our Orchestra Iowa. And so my editor said, "Oh, go do a travel feature on Mason City." And I thought, yeah, like there's anything there. There's a ton of stuff there. So I had, it's like, what a wonderful discovery. And now one of my college friends has a cabin on the lake, and she's always trying to get me to come up there. And I've never been able to because my schedule's so busy. When I'm retired, I will be camping at her joint on a regular basis.
Well,
Carrie, how do you market? Yeah, Carrie, how do you market something that seems so obvious, but do people even know that Eldon is there and the house that inspired American Gothic is right there?
Well, I am fortunate that people do seek me out. In fact, I just got back from a movie shoot in England because they came here to the house to shoot. And anyway, we hit it off and I went there to complete the filming. So I am lucky that people do find me, but that doesn't mean that I just sit on, here all day at my desk. I'm very active with a lot of the tourism groups here, not just Gate here in Eldon, but with Mita-Tumwa, which is our CVB for Wapello County. We have a fantastic relationship, and she is very good with throwing money my way when it comes to advertising and big dollar advertising that I could not afford on my own. I'm also very active in our byway. We're Historic Hill Scenic Byway, and I'm on that board as well. And so I also go to, the tourism, especially with Travel Iowa and with the Central Iowa Tourism Region. I try to keep my fingers in lots of different areas, including ITIP, and to keep me aware of what is going on and how I need to focus in order to get people here. The one thing that I am doing more of, however, that previous administrators did not, is I am doing more local advertising, because I have not seen, and there's big dollars with USA Today. There's big dollars that we have spent to be in USA Today, and I don't see the return. But I think in order to truly be successful, you do have to involve your community. And if it means I spend money at the local radio station, at the local newspapers, and to be able to support things like that, I think, to me, I think that is just as important in being successful as reaching the people that come see me, who came over just to interview me from Dublin, Ireland. And I think because that's a one-time shot, whereas the people around me are the ones that are going to continue their support. And quite frankly, I'm also very fortunate because I am tax funded. We are Wapello County Conservation, and we are funded by Wapello County. And my budget comes from them, with the expectation that I give back in revenues through our gift shop donations, and now, of course, with our admission with our admission charges. So I'm in a little bit different situation than other people. It's kind of unique in that aspect. And Ottumwa, they have several really nice museums, but they struggle for their funding because they're nonprofit. Well, we're government, and like I said, I do have a somewhat of a guarantee based on the expectation of a return. And but again, being involved and being part of that community helps. It definitely helps.
Excellent. We do have a couple of good questions from our chat room.
Diana, can I
Yes,
add one more thing really quickly?
absolutely.
So something that I did this year that's absolutely free to do, and I think that could benefit a lot of smaller communities out there, as well as possibly Carrie and Libby as well. But I just asked my Facebook friends, can you share this post? And then they shared it, and they asked their friends to share it. And I think we got over 250 some odd shares that we didn't pay for any marketing for whatsoever. So I think that's also a really good route. It's because my social circle is completely different than yours, Diana, and so on and so forth. So that's also another really, really great way, especially for these smaller town festivals that are looking on ways to gain exposure to their event.
Excellent. I'm going to jump over to a couple of questions in our waning moments here. One of our viewers is curious how you think we might be able to leverage the unique attractions to get more national visibility, and how closely do you all work with Tourism Iowa?
I can take that one. So Travel Iowa is doing a lot of marketing that we can't afford to do. They have a lot of research, and we piggyback on what they do quite often, and they're a huge resource for us. They have done some things as far as international marketing ideas, and I had just gotten the e-traveler the other day. They're going to be doing some education with us and partnerships with us, as in CVBs, DMOs, attractions throughout the state. We don't do any international advertising at this time specifically. We just don't see that market. The Surf Ballroom has the Winter Dance Party the first weekend in February, and they do see international visitors, but we don't see many throughout the year. So I'm really excited to learn more about it through Travel Iowa and see how we can all work together, because truly we do. All of our organizations, we try to keep people in the state as long as we can. So the more we can build itineraries that have them going from community to community and experiencing all the great things we have to offer is best for our state.
And I think that also piggybacks with another one of our viewer questions on how can we help rural Iowa attract more folks and get them to come back. Do you see this kind of collaboration as key to some of that?
Well, I do
anyone.
for sure.
Yeah.
I do for sure. And, you know, like I said, with the byway, the whole idea with the byway is to get people off the highway and get them into the small towns, get them into the rural areas to see things that you normally wouldn't see. And so having good relationships with, you know, those smaller but big and mighty entities, I think is incredibly, incredibly important. And with the Travel Iowa, like I said, I've got Laura over at Metatumwa who is building her relationship with Travel Iowa. I take what they say to heart, and I have tons of notes that I haven't had time to implement yet. But thank goodness Laura does, and we can participate in those collaborations with the different markets. And international market is definitely where I need to be as well. Prior to COVID, we did see more international travelers. I will tell you, we've had travelers from over 100 different countries. Since COVID, we are seeing more domestic, and I don't just mean Iowa, but I mean United States as well. We are seeing more domestic. I mean, we've had every state in the United States and all our territories, but that it seems to be more of that now. But I would say at least once a month, I get a message from an international, whether it's an international student, an international professor, someone who travels abroad wanting to know more information at least once a month, at least.
And you're seeing people whose point of origin is the Des Moines airport. That's something you mentioned.
I do. Yeah, we had that. We follow our arrival list information very closely. We have that with our CVB, so we follow that. But there's another company that has come out there that said, hey, we can do the same thing, but pinpoint it more. And so working with the Des Moines airport or even the Cedar Rapids airport, I think would be important in my case, as well as a lot of our visitors go to Jordan Creek Mall and the Coralville Mall. So I know that I have two really big markets of people that I need to hit, which means my advertising budget's probably going to need to go up to be able to afford some of those opportunities. But I am also very lucky that the state promotes the American Gothic House on their own budget. I mean, I was sitting in an Iowa Cubs game and all of a sudden there's this big advertisement for the American Gothic House, and it wasn't one I had created. And so I'm fortunate there as well.
Now, didn't you see a tie-in? Were you the one who saw a tie-in over in Europe when you were traveling?
So I did, actually, I did. So when I was done with the movie shoot, my husband and I zipped the Eurostar over to Disneyland Paris. And it is rumored that Disneyland Paris is the only It's a Small World that has a North American section. And lo and behold, we're going on It's a Small World, which is a family joke with us anyway. But I'm on It's a Small World. We come to the North American section, and I'll be darned if the American Gothic House isn't in your face right there in Disneyland Paris, and It's a Small World. And so then my husband and I have a little chuckle of that, take some pictures, and we go over to, they call it Discoveryland. If you're familiar at all with Disney in Florida, we call it Tomorrowland. But anyway, they have something called Autotopia, which is like Tomorrowland Speedway. And we're driving around on these little cars, and my husband starts laughing because he let me drive. Big billboard of a parody of American Gothic with futuristic themes, I guess we'll call it. And so luckily I was driving, so luckily he was able to snap a picture of that as well. But here I am in Paris, and I have two references to Grant Wood and the American Gothic, not just the painting, but the house as well in Paris.
You can't buy publicity like that.
Really, honestly.
Any thoughts? We have another message on how we can create new attractions in Iowa to make it a better place to visit. Any thoughts on, that's like starting at ground the very grassroots kind of effort.
I think what you got to do is almost figure out what, especially attraction wise, is like what your community can like withstand. Is like how much people can actually like come through there in a year. Like for example, Riverside, I would say our number is probably 10,000. Clear Lake is probably way more than that based on, you know, the demographic, all the places that you can get an Airbnb, different things like that, staying around the lake. But I think that just understanding what your target market is and what you're looking to bring into your community and figure out what attraction is best suited for you. If it wasn't for the Star Trek idea, you know, we might be celebrating, you know, being a train stop along the railroad to bring in a celebration that way. So figure out what your town or community has that can be rallied behind and, you know, be the most impactful and get the most eyes on it. So
excellent. Thank you so much. Our time is up. I could keep going, but we do have other sessions. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to all of our viewers. We do have plenty more sessions. And of course, we have a keynote this afternoon with Harper from Harper and Will, or Will and Harper. I can't remember which way that goes. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and, you know, happy traveling.